Good afternoon, everyone. It is 1 o'clock on a Tuesday on Facebook Live, and that means it's time for another interview with an amazing guest right here on my show called Get to Know Them. I am your host, Monica Graves. If you have never tuned into the show before, I will introduce myself to you. I'm a local jewelry designer based out of Burlington, Ontario, and I broadcast the show live from my studio. And it was a dream I had when COVID started that I always wanted to interview some of the most interesting people I know and do it on a live platform like this so that you could join us and get some inspiration. And it's been great. So I've got a whole catalog of interviews on YouTube that you can go back and watch if you're interested. You can go to my website, gettoknowthem.ca, which will direct you to all of those interviews. And today on the show, I have a big treat for you. But before I introduce the guest for today, I would like to talk to you about my sponsors. So first of all, my beloved sponsor who has been with me since the very beginning, who dresses me for every show, is Brenda Badome. She is a Canadian clothing designer, and her clothing is beautiful. She designs for women, and you can check out her website at brendabadome.ca and use the coupon code Get to Know Them, and she will give you 20% off of your order. And my next sponsor and my latest sponsor is Scooters Roller Palace. Yes, they are still open. They're still there in Mississauga, Ontario. If you're looking for a fun way to exercise and keep fit, join me there. I'm there almost every Thursday night skating, and Thursday nights are great because they do have lessons at 7 p.m. So if you need a little brush up, if it's been a few years, do not hesitate to take a lesson. It will give you all the confidence you need for a good skate night. And last but not least, I also sponsor the show with my jewelry business, Glam Jewels, GLAMJULZ.com, if you want to check out the website. And today I'm wearing one of our Three Little Wishes necklaces. This is a very special necklace where proceeds go to help a family suffering from the financial burdens of cancer. The necklaces are $35. The proceeds go to the family. And this year we are helping Jeff McDonald, who is a 37-year-old dad with a brain tumor. He is now in hospice, and he has a wife and 4 children. So if you are looking for a gift that gives back, it sure would be great if you could pick up one of our necklaces and share it with all your friends. So are you guys ready for today's guest? I cannot wait to introduce you to Sunny Janesco. I'm going to read you her bio, and then she's coming on screen with us. Sunny has been the co-host of the 102.9 Bounce Morning Show with Matt Hayes for the last 30 years. She's been in radio since 1980 and has worked in places like Sudbury and Winnipeg. Hamilton is now home for her profession. She loves working there and has developed a very strong sense of community. She's been involved in a number of fundraising projects and recently became a wedding officiant. She is really enjoying it. Sunny loves to make people laugh and spends as much time as she can out on the golf course or in her garden. I met Sunny through our mutual friend, Nancy McMillan, who is the founder of the Bright Run in Hamilton. Hopefully Nancy's watching. Hi, Nancy. And Sunny has been a great support to me and my business over the years. And I'm so excited to chat with her about her career and how she loves to learn new things and enjoy life to the max. Get ready for some amazing energy. Here she is.
Oh my goodness, Monica! With an introduction like that, I feel like I have to do a dance routine or something. I'm not sure.
Oh, please do. I wanted to like blow confetti, pop a cork, you know.
Now, Monica, I want to say something to you. Yeah. I don't know whether you realize this, but I don't know whether you can see the earrings I have on. Now, these earrings were your creation. I moved to Dundas about 20 or so years ago. You'd probably know the store because it's not downtown anymore. And your jewelry used to be sold there. And this was long before I ever met you. And I walked into that store and I saw these earrings and I went nuts. Now, it's kind of hard. It doesn't really show it that well, but they're a very beautiful turquoise round jewel. And they are so in even now, over 20 years later. And I thought I dug them out of my jewelry box and I wanted to wear them because you see, I'm wearing these sponsored earrings. So even back then, Monica, because how long have you been making jewelry?
Since like I founded my company in 2000, so and since the 90s, but I think I met you around 2006, 2008. That's when I really started getting my jewelry into more boutiques.
Yeah, and I
And
remember when I saw these earrings
yeah.
because I read something about, now here I'm talking about your history, but I was so flipped out because there was something, the TIFF festival was on in Toronto, and one of the
Yeah.
actresses was boasting about your jewelry. And I don't know if you
Yes, that's
remember that
right.
at all. Yeah. So
I
anyway.
totally remember. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So that would have been 2005.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yes.
So anyway.
Cool. We go way back and we haven't even
Oh,
changed one bit in all
I
that
know.
time.
Isn't it unbelievable? My hair has remained the same color, not, but that's okay. I mean,
I love it. So, Sunny, I have to ask you, every guest, I ask the very same first question. And that is, what did little Sunny want to be when she grew up?
well, you know what? When I was a kid, my biggest thing was I always liked to be in front of the classroom. Like I was always the first one to, put my hand up because I wanted to be the first person when it was the public speaking contest and stuff. I loved being in front of people and speaking. So I think initially, the teaching profession was where I was aiming, or writing or journalism of some kind. But it was really about uh, getting up there in front of the classroom because I was one of those people who loved being in school and loved being around friends. But
Yeah.
as I was going through class, as I, got through high school, I started to realize, um, my interest was still there in the teaching end of it, but I had a chance to go to Fanshawe College and look into their radio program. And I don't even know what drew me down in that sort of path, but there was always going to be some sort of public speaking of some kind. I was headed down that way.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And so what happened like as you went through school?
Uh,
Were
I,
you always like, yeah.
yeah, you know what it was, Monica? I was the girl. I wasn't the popular girl. I was the funny girl. I was the girl who was always, there was always, I always call them Seinfeld incidents going on throughout my whole life. So I loved the art of laughter was always, if I could make people laugh without trying to make people laugh, that was always a big accomplishment for me. And one of my biggest things, because back then when I was in high school, if you wanted to go to university, you had to go to grade 13. And I remember when I was graduating from grade 12, when I put something in my head, I say that I want this, I want it so bad. I wanted to be valedictorian really badly. So when in high school you usually get voted or whatever, and I knew I wasn't the popular kid. Now how I ended up being valedictorian, I have no idea, but somebody said she's funny, she'll do a great job, let her do it. So that gave me a taste when I got up there, made me realize it's really not about being like the most popular one. It's really, if you really want it, you just get up there and do it. You had to sort of prove that, what, there's something here beyond what you see, it's not the hair, it's not the way they look or the way they walk, it's what
Yeah.
comes out of their mouth, and I
Hey,
was all I was always like that. I love to be around everybody, and I think throughout high school that's what it was for me. And so when I was on the verge of graduating, I was looking into going to school in Ottawa. I was looking into, like, perhaps was I going to continue with the teaching thing, and as I mentioned, I thought, okay, I'm going to try the broadcasting thing too. And I looked at Mohawk, but Mohawk was really in the beginning stages of the broadcasting course. So I went to Fanshawe College in London because they had been around for a while longer. And
okay.
I got interviewed, and I don't know, as soon as I saw what could possibly happen in my life, I thought, it's a long shot. I got to try it. I just have
Great.
to try this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Without
that's
thinking,
incredible.
yeah,
Hey, I wanted to ask you something. I've heard different comedians talk about getting into comedy and making people laugh, and they say that the biggest confidence builder for a lot of them was being able to make their parents laugh. Do you remember that for
well,
yourself too?
I
Is
got
that something?
I got to be honest with you, Monica. You know what I remember the most with
Yeah,
my parents?
yeah,
Very Italian background I came from. I
yeah.
when we were at the dinner table, I can remember my dad constantly telling me to because I had the gift of gab, and I was always talking and I was always laughing. And I remember him saying to me, "Can't you like, it's not that he didn't enjoy listening to me. It's just that I was always always eager to tell everybody everything that was going on. I was always laughing my head off." And I remember my dad saying, "We're having dinner. Don't you want to just, relax a little bit?" And I remember when I got my first radio job, I remember telling my dad, "Guess what, Dad? I'm going to get paid for all the things you told me you didn't want me to do. Look at me now." So he always laughed and said, "Okay, okay." But, I was always very vivacious that way. Like I said, if you don't try to do things you really want to do, you're going to regret it the rest of your life. So you give it your best shot and see where it takes you.
That's perfect. And I love what you're saying, like this whole story with your dad, because that's what they say. I mean, people have so much pressure on them when they're young, with ideas put on them by their parents, be a doctor, be a lawyer, whatever it is. But they say when you can really hone in on what you love to do the most, and if that's talking and keeping people,
entertained or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Monica? I have a sister, Lena, who's a year younger than me. And in high school, we were like polar opposites. She was very quiet, very to herself. And I'd be in the cafeteria laughing my head off with my best friend, Melanie, at the time. And she would come over all the time and go, "I am so embarrassed. Everyone can't believe how much you keep laughing." And I just look at her and go, "So what? Get out of here." Like it didn't bother me in the least that if she felt embarrassed. But that was her because she was always, very neat, polite, and didn't. I mean, I was having fun, and that's all there was to it.
Where did that confidence come from? Because that's quite something when you're in high school to have confidence like that.
You know what, It's kind of strange because sometimes I wonder about that thing about confidence, because I think it's just realizing that, there's something there, or people like you for who you are. I think that's what my biggest thing was, because as I said, I was never, Monica, the one that everybody said, "Let's hang out with Sunny. She's part of the in." There was always that in crowd group of people. Well, I was never part of those people ever. So I think I had to be part of the, out crowd, I guess. I don't know. I had to be part of my own little group of people, or do my own thing, because those people there was always that group of people that were just unreachable. You couldn't be like them. They were the greatest. They were the whatever that, and they were the ones with all the confidence, because they had the confidence to walk around like they were something else.
Yeah. I remember in our high school, we called them the elite. That was that group,
exactly. Right? And you felt they were just untouchable. You couldn't go near them. It's like you almost had to send them a special note if you want to talk to them. Like, it was just ridiculous. But I think that's part of when you go through school, you put those kinds of pressures on yourself.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Were you a fan of SCTV when you were a kid?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. Yeah, all that kind of nutty humor, and really, I was in awe of those types of people with those types of personalities. Again, those types of comedians and actors weren't afraid to just put it out there, and people were laughing their heads off. And now that's become such a cult favorite.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite good.
So true. Oh yeah, amazing. I love that. So in 1980, that's when you graduated from Fanshawe, or you started?
Yeah, graduated from Fanshawe and got a job right away. But you know what, Monica, I got a job in Sudbury, and when we graduated from Fanshawe, we were all told, "You're going to have to move to find where you're going to end up. You're not going to find a job immediately in your hometown or near you." I grew up in Fort Erie in southern Ontario in the Niagara region. So when I went to school in London, I had told my folks, "Look, I don't know where the future, what it holds for me, or where I'll end up." But when I got offered the job in Sudbury, I also have a great love of music. So they hired me to help program their music station. And that was a big thing for them, because I was a young female in my early 20s with no experience, and they were taking a big chance with me. But my biggest thing was, my dream was, I wanted to get on the air so badly. So when I got there, I did the music, and I helped with all the program. It was kind of an oldies kind of station. Celine Dion was just making inroads. It was a very, very young and very exciting time for Canadian music at that time too. But they didn't really I did some commercial voicing, but I never had a show. And then I started to do an evening show. And that's really what you used to do in radio broadcasting. I mean, if you wanted to start out, you started out doing a night show of some kind. So I did like weekend shows and that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden, I was heard by, at that time, it was when Chum was in Toronto, they had stations right across the country. Well, they had heard my voice and asked me if I was interested in doing a radio shift in Winnipeg. And they were going to give me a full-time job. And I thought, oh my God, this is my big break. So, I left everything behind in Northern Ontario, took a job that had never been out west in my entire life, gave 2 weeks notice and moved to Winnipeg and started doing an all-night show in Winnipeg. And when I arrived there in 1986, they got the worst storm they'd had in like 24 years. I couldn't believe what I had done and what was I thinking? But when I got there, that's when everything started to happen. I got on the air doing the all-night show. They offered me, they said, look, we think you can do a morning show. And from there, it just blossomed.
That's incredible. So how long were you in Winnipeg?
How long? In Winnipeg, I was in Winnipeg from 1980 to, no, I was in Sudbury from 1980 to 86. And then 86 to 92, I was in Winnipeg. And I've been here in Hamilton since 1992.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. Holy smokes.
And you know what? When I came to Hamilton, the first 12 months that I was working here, we had a morning man, and that came to an end, and we needed a new morning man. And Matt was doing the weather at CHCH at the time, and he said, you know what? I'd really like to try it. And he came, like, while he was off work, he came over to the radio station and did the show with me for a little while. And I thought to myself, and I had never met him before. And I thought, you know what? I think this is going to work. Like, there was something about our chemistry, and it was pretty early in the stages of us working together. And I kept saying to everybody, I know it sounds really raw, but this has great potential. And we just stuck it right through. And 30, going on to 31 years later. Can you believe that one?
I can't believe it. So you guys celebrated 30 years in May.
Yeah. Like,
what did you do for your celebration?
Well, you know what we didn't do a big hoopla, because we had a bunch of people, like Matt and I, in the time that we worked together, we work side by side, and then we have a morning show producer. We don't do any of the production aspect of the show. And we've had some fantastic producers that have gone on to other things. So we had some of the past producers on with us that kind of shared their stories about things that had happened when they worked with us, because there were some pretty crazy, fun, nutty stories that took place. So it was, I don't want to ever say it was low key, but it was really memories about working together and how much fun it was. I think we, have been shocked ourselves at the success of the show, and that it has lasted as long as it has. Because 30 years in radio, I think in years of marriage years, I think is like 60 years, because you're in close quarters working with someone for like 4 or 5 hours solid.
Exactly. Like, this is the thing. I was thinking when I was reading that 30 years, I'm thinking, like, look at poor Hall and Oates now. Like, they're divorcing. It's so sad. But
well, and it's funny you should bring them up, because I was talking to Matt about that the other day, and I thought to myself, I said to Matt, like, I don't understand how John Oates would decide, okay, I want to sell my half of the music, and Daryl wouldn't have been aware of that at all. I mean, you both equally own the rights to the music, and yet they've been in interviews, and Daryl says, oh, he's a great guy, we're good friends. I don't understand how that can be. When something like this hits you like this, you find out a working partner that you've had all these years has decided. Now, whether he wants to sell his portion of music is up to him, I guess, but it just seems weird, eh? Like,
it does. Yeah, the whole thing is a little strange. Yeah. It almost feels like there's an outside influence or something,
Well, and the other thing I think about it too, you got to ask yourself too, Monica. So many people will say, "Oh, they're my best friend. We get along so well." And you know what? Yeah. A lot of that, and I don't want to say it's a great big lie, but a lot of that is really embellished. How close really are you?
Yes, exactly.
That's what made me think when I saw that story.
Yeah. And for you and Matt, like, it's true. So 30 years.
Yeah.
We all know how we feel when early in the morning. It's not the most joyful point of the day, not at the hour you guys are
No,
So,
no.
you know, and then you guys come together and you bring joy to all of these people listening, and you do that day after day for 30 years. Like, how many days is that in a row? But anyways, I
Well,
how what's the magic?
well, you know
what
what?
is it?
A lot of times he'd come in the control room, and he'd go, I've got it. He suffers from migraines. I suffer from sinuses, and we always have our aches and pains and stuff. We're certainly not young people, that's for sure. But you can come on the air and go, look, I've got a headache. People can relate to that. But after you've said that, they still want to be entertained. It's like, okay, that's okay. I feel bad you got a headache. Now make me laugh, make me feel like it's, that life is fun. And I think you really are put to the test. Like over the years, and especially during COVID, during 9/11, during those times when people were scared and afraid, and the COVID thing was so hard for everyone to deal with. I think Matt and I were bound and determined to entertain people, to make them laugh, not belly laugh, but make them feel like everything's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. It's just one of those things that life's brought us, and we just got to sort of get through this thing. So a lot of the things with me is that I've learned, and I've always been this kind of person. If you cannot laugh at yourself, like I would come into work, and Matt loves to do this to me. I go, like, you wouldn't believe what happened to me yesterday. I tripped and fell. And of course he'd bring it up on the air, and we kill ourselves laughing about it, because it's funny only because when I tell the story, it almost seems unbelievable. But then when we talk about it on the air, somebody will text us and go, that was so funny that happened. So I think, if you put a smile on someone's face, I don't mind sharing it with the whole world. It's not a big,
It's the greatest gift you can give someone, really, like, people are suffering. And I wanted to ask you that too, like, over the years, what sort of, is there anything that stands out where you almost like saved a person with your humor and your consistency of day after day, like being there for them?
Well, you know what? It happened, and we noticed it quite a bit during 9/11. We got quite a few messages from our Bounce listeners that said, we are so glad in these ever-changing times, and the way things have been, life has just not been normal since COVID started, that you're our normal, and you still make us laugh, and we still make us happy. That is the greatest, probably the greatest compliment. And it's the greatest gift to have, because if that makes people feel like everything's going to be okay, then I really feel like we've done our job, And I shouldn't even say that we've done our job. It doesn't feel like a job. Matt and I will come in and we start killing ourselves laughing about something, and someone else finds it humorous, and it just goes on and on and on. Then that's a good thing, And I think that you have to always keep in mind, you spend so much of your life working. So when you're at work, you really want to be able to enjoy that part of your life, because you spend so much of it doing it, so much time doing it.
It's so important. And the other thing that is so unique about your show, like, first of all, the fact that it's lasted 30 years is huge, but the other part of that is I find that people are like, whether you're listening to a morning show, stand-up comedy, anything where there's laughter involved, there's a lot of now like this shock value where the more F-bombs you drop, the more, you talk about whatever, like it's almost like that's what people want now, or that's the impression you get. But you guys, it's such a clean show. Like, it's like, this is really cool because people are listening to you. You've been on for 30 years and people are listening to you talk about life in a clean way. Like, we don't have to be, not that I'm saying I'm against F-bombs or anything like that, but I just think that is unique in itself. That
well, and you know what, Monica,
do that.
Well, and that's a good point. I think both Matt and I both really have, we're in that era. We both love Seinfeld, and we love the show. And if you remember, any time he did anything remotely suggestive, it was just suggestive and innuendo. There was never any bad language involved. There was never anything. And it made the show very funny, even in its awkward style humor. And I think that you can do things like that without having to, do the bombs or whatever. And let's face it, hey, I mean, we all have days like that. Everybody has days like that. So it's not like we get,
Yeah.
oh, we're so happy. Life is so fantastic. No, it isn't fantastic all the time. That's for sure. But it
Yeah.
sure is great if you share a story about something that, you know, and we do this a lot. Like we talk about, you know, when you get scam phone calls or things, those, when you talk about all those relatable things, everybody says, yeah, I do it too. Because some people in their minds think that, not that we're stars or anybody's star, but I think, oh, those people, they don't experience what we experience. Yes, we do. We all experience the same stuff. Some people just don't want to talk about it. I clearly love talking about it because I always think it makes other people go, yeah, I've gone through that too. You know,
Yes.
you know, if you can't talk about it, well, you know, what's the point?
Right.
You know?
Right. And you know, this is a great segue to all of the good work that you're doing in community, because you are so open and you do like to talk about things. And I can tell even from the conversations you and I have had, it's like the way that you approach people in life, it's like you're an open book to, I could say to you, you know what, Sunny, I'm having this problem. And you'd be like, sure, let's talk it out, you know?
Well, and you know what, Monica, because I've been
Yeah.
to, I mean, what I truly loved when I came to Hamilton, and really with it, working with Matt too, because I mean, he's the big community. I mean, he's from Hamilton, and everybody loves him, and he's done tons of community stuff too. And so we both very much involved in what's going on in the area, and love where we live and being part of it. And if there's any way we can help out in it in any way, we will do that big time. So, you know, I can remember my sister always saying to me, you know, don't do things because you expect people to say, oh, look, she does all this or he does all these things. Do these things because you truly want to do it. And I always say, you know, if you can get out there, and if somebody asks you just to volunteer a couple of hours doing something, whether it's in a home, whether it's going on, we do the breast cancer walk. You and I always see that at the Bryant Run. I mean, thousands of people go to that. They walk on behalf of a loved one or a friend or whatever. You raise a bunch of money. You've done something really good. You know, you've raised awareness, and there's a lot of people who are afraid to come out and maybe acknowledge those sorts of things. So by coming out there and saying, come out here and do this, it gets more people involved, you know?
Yes, it does. And you know, it's so good for anyone's mental health. Like we're so like self-focused, and rightly so, because the world is unpredictable. There are things we've experienced, things like, you know, especially with COVID, 9/11, like things we never would have thought we'd see, you know, as kids growing up. And so we get worried and we focus inward. But you know, when you can like walk out the front door and say, I'm not going to think about myself today, I'm going to think about somebody else, it's such a good pathway to healing mentally, you know, like.
Well, and I don't know whether you've seen this, Monica, because you talk about the mental health thing, and I think we've all been tested. Let's face it, COVID, you know, scared everybody, and there are so many people, and I still have some friends that are still not that, I don't want to say that they haven't recovered, but they haven't really, they don't feel like everything's quite normal. And, you know, it's all your own personal, you know, way of dealing with all of these things. But to me, I'm a firm believer in having conversations with people. And if you're somebody who is home alone and, you know, you're afraid to talk about it, don't be, as far as I'm concerned, because, I mean, you'd be surprised how many people feel the same way you do. They just don't want to say it. You know, they're just too afraid to say it. I don't even understand that concept of being afraid to say it, because, I mean, I know that, I mean, during that, I'll be the first to admit it too, that during COVID, I was pretty scared. Weren't you? Like, didn't you think like, what, I mean, what is going on? You know?
Yeah, it was very scary time. Yeah. Like, yeah, your brain is working in a way that you never thought of. Like, you know, even doing something like taking your debit card out and
Oh,
and you know, it's like, oh, now should I like clean that off because I could
yeah.
get COVID from the machine or whatever.
You were
Yeah.
afraid, yeah, you were afraid to go in public. I remember when the whole COVID thing started. I can remember that, I mean, because the radio station's next to Lime Ridge Mall, and remember they were closing various buildings, and well, you couldn't go shopping at Lime Ridge, but I could get in the car and go to Burlington Mall. But it was just, the whole thing was just confusing and scary, and just, you know, I think we've got a better handle on it now than we ever had. But again, when something like this is so unknown to everybody, you know, you sort of expect this type of reaction. You're trying to find what the other side is, it can be difficult, and talk to somebody about it,
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Because yeah, we're all everybody has compassion for it. Put it to you that way. Hopefully, but most people do.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
now you said, Monica, when you were off during COVID, like you did the show before COVID, right? You did this show.
No, I actually, so COVID was on a Friday the 13th in March of
Okay.
2020, and the Tuesday after I started, and I've been going every Tuesday. I take summers off, but every Tuesday. So I think I've interviewed over 130 people now, something like that, 125.
Which is fantastic. And
So,
that's something you
yeah.
really want to do, right?
Yeah, and it
Okay.
was good for my mental health because you can't see anybody and now everybody's available. So, you're getting people who are like, sure, I'll talk to you. Like, this is great. I can't, some musicians, Canadian musicians, I can't play live. Like, why not? I'll come on and talk, and
And do it there. Well, and
it's so
that's
much
like
more
you did,
free.
you gave your timeline. My timeline was similar when we went into COVID. That's when I decided I took the wedding officiants course. So it's a government, I can do weddings anywhere in the province of Ontario. And, during one Saturday, I took the course and, decided, it's always something I've wanted to do. I've been to weddings and I've seen them officiated. And I thought, you know what, I didn't say, oh, I think I can do it. I just thought, you know what, I think I would like to do that. It's a setting
Yeah.
that's very happy. And maybe I saw too many, the bad women's channel movies. I'm thinking, oh, I can
Oh,
just,
yeah.
I'm going to walk in and, it's going to be just the greatest day and everything else. But I've done maybe 14 or 15 weddings. They've all been really different and in some larger venues. I just did the last one I did for the season was one of my favorites because it was a couple's backyard. They'd been together for many, many years and decided, you know what, we want to get married. And they had a very small, intimate the backyard was beautiful. And it was very cold. If you remember Saturday, it was very cold and rainy, but they had the fireplace.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
My God, your energy is unlimited. Like, that's incredible that you're
Well,
doing
you know what, Monica, I love it. It was really good. But you know what, the only drawback with me when I know I have to do a wedding, leading up to it, you'd swear I was the one getting married. Like I'm pacing and walking around and hoping everybody's going to be okay and nothing's going to happen anybody. Like
Yeah.
so I have to calm that part of myself down a bit,
Right.
because it's really not about me. That's for sure. It's really about, having a nice wedding ceremony for a couple that have been waiting to get married. So.
Yeah. And has anything ever happened that was unexpected that you were like, oh, I got to handle this and didn't
No, nothing
see
like
this
that
coming?
happened. There was
No?
just one, there was another backyard wedding that I did, and actually the couple were wonderful. And I remember when I arrived, the bride was absolutely beautiful. And it was the second time around for both this couple. And I remember when you get there, they have to apply to get their marriage license. So as soon as I get in the door, they have to give me the marriage license. So I said to
Right.
this gal, can I get the marriage license? Well, she was so flipped that today was the day that it was happening. She says, oh yeah, I know I went and got it the other day, but I'm not sure. And I'm feeling, oh, what do you mean you're not sure? And she was so calm. And I wanted to strangle her. And I thought, will you go find it? She seems so nuts. She's just, well, I'll find it one day. Now, one day, it's today. You're getting married today. So she finally found it and everything else. But that's me. I'm
Yeah.
going around the house going, things are not right here. We can't find the marriage license. And they go, don't worry about it. She eventually found it. She was adorable. But it was just the way that she said
Oh,
it. I thought, oh man. But it was,
yeah.
everyone has been fantastic. Oh, and at that same wedding, there was an incident where the father-in-law, a very Italian man, in the middle of the ceremony, he got up while I was speaking and he stood beside me for a few minutes. So what I did, rather than acknowledge anything, I think he was just so excited for his son to get married that I just let him stand there, and everybody was wondering what was going to happen. And I thought he'll be okay. And he was okay. So, I mean, being a broadcaster myself, a lot of things have happened. So that's the least of my, having a nice little old man there wasn't going to cause me any trouble. He wanted to be there. So that was fine.
That is so great. Oh man. And how do people find out that you're doing it? Like, is it word of mouth
Well, yeah, you know what I
you
wanted
do
to do
it?
you know what I wanted to do first, Monica? I wanted to get a website and I want to do all this stuff. But the thing is,
Mhm.
this is sort of, I mean, I'm still working full time, and I thought, I've got my license. I had cards made up, and you can go to our site, and it's called Awesome Weddings. There's a site you can go to. You can just Google, officiants, in Ontario, and they'll have the names, like because I'm in Dundas, and you can find me very easily. But I didn't want to get into doing a big wedding site and going to weddings and doing things, because I'm still working full time. So I'm fitting them in when I can right now. So, and now we're starting to see the return to the weddings. I don't think we're quite all the way there since COVID, but we are catching up. The venues are getting bigger again. They are having wedding shows now. When I started to do it, most of the weddings were quite small. So they're getting bigger, where they're about 100 and 150. You're starting to see bigger numbers again.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. What do you love the most about it? Like, when you're up there, what's your...
You know what? The funniest thing about that, and I was telling somebody, there's one thing that I love about radio, is that when people meet me or whatever, they go, "Oh, you sound like you'd be really tall," or they're trying to visualize what you look like or what you're all about. But when I get up there to do the ceremony, there you just see all those eyes on you, and I think, man, I can imagine what the president and the prime minister, like when people get up there and give speeches, I'm thinking, don't look at me. Is my hair out of place? But once I get up there and I start to speak, it's like anything that anything that I do public speaking, I don't notice anybody else after that. They say picture everybody naked. I don't picture anybody. I just get up there, and I know what I'm going to say and how I'm going to say it. And that's how focused I can tend to be. About
That's
stuff
beautiful.
like that.
I really love how like your story started with you, in school, in high school, like no problem standing up in front of a crowd and doing that and thinking, like, maybe I'll teach one day. And now it's come full circle. Like, you've been sort of like behind the microphone talking to the masses, but not seeing them. And now you're actually standing up in front of your audience.
Yeah, isn't that, that's an interesting point. Yeah. You're right. Because I think I never, somebody always said, because Matt and I did a little bit, well, Matt had a very big TV career, but I did a little bit of television with him. I didn't care one way or the other whether I was ever on TV, because it was radio. I liked doing it. But what's interesting about TV is people that are watching you notice everything about you. They're stuck on your visual appearance. They're stuck at, and I always think they're not necessarily listening to you. That's why I love radio, because you have no choice. You got to listen to me whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Or you can switch, sort of thing. But, when you turn the radio on, you're listening to people. You're not looking at them, you're listening. So you have to really paint your picture through your voice and words.
Yeah, so interesting. It's almost like it's similar to reading a book. Like your imagination takes over, right? Like,
absolutely.
And remember, I mean, Sunny, remember back in, like, even in the 90s, I remember Q107, they had like a late night radio show where they would tell mystery stories or something. I can't remember what it was called, but it was right after Sue Johansson. Well, and it was so good. Like, you just sort of listen to the person's voice. And that's why podcasting's so big now too. It creates there's an intimacy there I don't think you get with television or video or
and you're forced to, because I know a lot of people who listen to podcasts when they're traveling long distances, or they listen to their favorite audio book or whatever. It's all in the way you say the words, it's the inflection and everything. So it's really forced listenership, which is kind of interesting. So you've got, to hold one's attention like that on a very regular basis, you've really got, as who used to say, I had a friend of mine used to say, you really got it going on. Well, you got to really have it going on to keep an audience captivated like that.
Yeah, definitely. When are you going to write a book about your life?
You know what? I can't imagine me doing that, because I don't think there's enough to it to do something like that. I really can't.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It would have to be something really, and you know what, these days with books too, especially with all the books that have come out in the last, so don't you find, because I love reading autobiographies. Usually a lot of those autobiographies that have come out they reveal a lot of details, like, you're not going to believe that so-and-so had an affair with so, like, I mean, my life's pretty much just there. There wasn't anything really going on that way, but I mean, I think if there's anything, if I was ever going to write something like that, it would be more about the fact that don't ever say you can't do something and get out there and do it,
Yeah.
because I think I'm a bit of an example of the fact that if you spend your whole life saying, well, I just, I think this is all I can do. Well, I always think, what's the worst that can happen? They tell you you can't do it and you move on to something else, right? I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know, if they had told you, Monica, your jewelry is just not going to make it, you would, I mean, look at what's happened with your jewelry line. I mean, it's huge,
Yeah, and people have said that to me over the years, and you just move on. Not my person. Keep going.
Yeah, get out of
Right?
here. No, I know I'm
Yeah.
switching. I know I'm switching it over to you because I love playing golf so much. But I did notice that you're loving doing the roller blading, or is it roller skating
Oh
or
yeah,
blade?
skating.
Yeah.
Skating. Yeah. You gonna come
Now,
with
did you
me?
did
Come
you do
join
that
us?
as a teenager?
I did. I
Yeah.
did. I did when I was like, I would say from the age of 10 to 14. And then as soon as high school dances started being a thing, I abandoned roller skating. But over COVID, I was like, I don't want to drink alcohol anymore. It's not doing it for me. I want to just explore other things, and that made me kind of it's crazy. Like, not that we have to talk about this for long, but when you give something up that you enjoy, but you also realize maybe it's not the best thing for your mental health,
Yeah.
especially over this time.
Right.
And you're all of a sudden, it's like you feel like a kid again. Like, I want to do roller skating. I want to play tennis. I want to try this, because you're kind of looking for thrilling things. And before you know it, it's like, oh my God, there's so much to enjoy in life. And you, my friend, are a prime example of that. Like, becoming the wedding officiant, like, all that charitable work you're doing, like walking out of your house every day, helping all these people, and then you're gardening and you're golfing, and now you're doing something else, which we haven't talked about.
Well, it's not so much if it's. I think I told you that I wanted to learn how to speak Spanish. I've mentioned this quite a bit with Matt on the air. Now, I know that during COVID, they had some night programs at some of the high schools where it did like senior programs. You can learn to speak the language or whatever. And because I spoke Italian fluently, I thought Spanish would be a very natural language for me to learn, because there's so many similarities to the Italian language. But during COVID, they got rid of a lot of the night courses, and then now they've just started to bring them back. So I'm going to look into it and do it, because I love speaking Italian, and I don't get to speak it that much. My parents are both deceased, and we always spoke Italian fluently in my family, and my brothers and sisters, we all speak English. So unless I've got an aunt in Buffalo that when I can talk to her from time to time, I'll speak Italian. But unless you speak that language all the time, you sort of lose it. So I thought the Spanish thing, I once I said to Matt one day when we were on the air, I said, I have to learn to speak Spanish. He said, why? I said, because 90% of the players on the Blue Jays are Spanish. So I could be one of the interpreters on staff or whatever. And he goes, only you would aim that way. But I mean, I hear the language, and I think I could learn this quite easily. I don't know. It's just something I want to do. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, a lot of people who know that you lost your husband.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about that as well, Sunny. Like, the two of you together, were you both extroverted? I'm assuming you're extroverted. Sometimes we have extroverted introverts too, right? But
well, and you know what, Monica, when I met Bob, my husband, I was never on a mission to meet anyone. I was always from the belief it had to happen naturally. If that man crossed your path, then you knew that was the guy. But I was in my 40s when I met Bob, and it was one of those things where my hairdresser called me and said, I found the guy for you. And my hairdresser, now he's no longer with us either, but he was fantastic. Reno said to me, this guy is the guy for you. And we went out one night for a coffee, and that was it. I knew that night, and I think he did too for some reason. And maybe because we're both like, I was in my 40s, he was in his 50s. I think we were both sort of, I feel really comfortable with this person. Bob was a very adventurous guy. He was a scuba diver. He was a heli skier. He was the MacGyver of everything, this guy. He wasn't afraid to do anything. And we traveled a lot. So if there's something a big thing that I learned from Bob, and we had I known all the things that we did so much together, had I known that it was going to be for such, like, when we were together 12 years, he got cancer and he passed away, but that it would be so short lived. It's almost as if, somebody up there was telling me, spend every moment you can with this man because you don't know what's going to happen. And that's exactly what happened in my case. I mean, it was, I felt like this is it. We're going to be, there's nothing we can't do. So everything we did together, I'm so thankful for, because he just enjoyed everything. Everything it was fun for him. Everything. He was a great cook. So, people always say, do you like talking about him? Or when people ask you about him, I loved it. People have a story to share because he was very well known. People loved him. I love it because that helps. That makes me feel good. Not sad at all. It makes me feel good that he was so liked by so many,
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's so good for you to say that. Any one of us who has a loved one who's passed away, that's the greatest gift you can give someone, is let's talk about that person, because it's so important. There's still a part of you and of your life. Like, it shouldn't be uncomfortable to talk.
Well, and the other thing too, there was a book I read about a gal who had just recently lost her husband, and she said that one of the things she couldn't understand was when she lost her husband, one of her best friends didn't talk to her for months and months and months. She didn't understand why. And she said that this friend finally broke down and said to her, well, I didn't know what to say to you. Well, but you should have known what to say. Like you should have called, because this is something that happens in life. And that's when you need that person the most. So running away from them does not help. Talking about it is what helps. Like I say about, even with COVID and everything else, I just think that people who do keep it bottled up, it's difficult to do that. You gotta, you find someone you can share that information with, or someone that you can have that kind of talk with. And everybody has different ways when they grieve. Like everybody says, give yourself a year, 2 years. There's no time limit on any of that stuff. You just know in your heart of hearts when you feel, things are going to be okay. They're with you forever. That's the greatest.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. What's can you share with us one of your best adventures with Bob?
You know what, we did so many, so many trips together. One that he planned, though, and he was very good at planning and finding trips of places. And both of us very avid golfers, and we went to Ireland to play golf. And he found a place in Adare. It was a castle, and it was an unbelievable price. And we went there. We played golf at the golf course there, and we went all along. We went to Galway, we went to Dublin, and we played golf all over the place. It really was the adventure of a lifetime, because he had researched all these many little places, went into some of the pubs with some of the the bands that were playing in the area, and he was really good at finding trips like that. He didn't want to ever find things that were really commercial. He liked finding, I saw this place, it's got 2 Michelin stars, let's go check it out, and it would be this fabulous little restaurant that nobody knew about. So that Ireland adventure was really fantastic. And if there's something I remember so well about him, I said to him, we've got to go back to Ireland next year. And he said, why would we go back? There's so many places we haven't been. And I think, I guess there's something to be said. When people go away, Monica, they go, I'm going back there again because I love this so much. But there's a billion other places. It's kind of funny.
It's true. Yeah. It's crazy. Where's your next trip going to be, Sunny?
You know what? Last year for the first time, I met up with my sister, and we went to Palm Springs. I'd never been in California, and absolutely loved it. We went for a hike to the Mojave Desert with Joshua Tree. Loved every second of it. And she's got a place there, timeshare. So I'm going to go back there next month. But that was a place in the U.S. I just absolutely loved it. It was the Bob Hope kind of place. Lucille Ball had lived there. It's filled with a lot of Hollywood history, but a lot of kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. People who they just have their own, they beat to their own drummer kind of thing. They're friendly people, but really kind of neat. I felt like I was back in time somewhere. I quite enjoyed that. So, but there's a big trip I want to take in the horizon, but I'm not quite sure which one that is, because I've been to France. I've done lots of big trips, but every time somebody brings up a place, it's like, I want to go there. I change my mind every 2 minutes.
Yeah, so. Maybe it's Spain, because
you know what? I've done Portugal. And I've gone and Bob and I went to the Rock of Gibraltar, the southernmost spot. So we've done some of those exciting places, but to actually go to Spain for a period of time, I think I would love. You done Spain?
I have, well, it's a long time ago, Sunny. My best friend and I, after high school, we backpacked all through Europe and we went to Gibraltar as well. And then we went over to
Yeah,
Morocco. And
yeah.
did you do that? Did you hop over to
No, we
Morocco
didn't do
while you were
that.
there?
I think when we
No.
got to Gibraltar, we did the tour, and there was a bond. The tour guide told us. I can't remember which. I think it was one of the Bond movies was filmed there. I'm trying to
Oh,
remember
okay.
which one it was. But all I remember when we were there was there was lots of wild monkeys all over the place, and they kept
Oh,
telling us if you were eating something to watch out because they would come right over to you and snatch it right
yeah.
out of your hands. And they said never wrestle or fight with them because you could get into like a fist fight with a little monkey because they were such little animals. So I remember thinking, what am I doing here? It's crazy. But and it's a
Yeah.
British, but Gibraltar is British. So when we got there, you had to change your money over to pounds if you wanted to go into their local bar to have a drink or to go shopping or that. It was exciting nonetheless. Very, very exciting.
Yeah. It's so cool. What a world we live in,
Yeah.
eh?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah.
And lots to see, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to see. That's good. So, you have given like a lot of good advice for people who, anybody, a young person maybe who's thinking about getting into broadcasting, or is there anything in particular that you would say to somebody who wants to dive into that world? Like, where do
Well,
you see the future of radio now? Like,
radio is changing so much, as you know. Really, radio and TV has changed quite a bit. So many things have changed with the broadcasting world. So I think if you are considering a career of any kind, whether it's TV, writing, like journalism, or doing the radio thing, to do your research. I mean, like in the Hamilton area in Oakville, I mean, there's broadcasting schools in this entire area. I would go and sit down with them and have I mean, they'll do a tour with you and they'll sit down and talk to you and tell you, like, I mean, so many people that, we've had so many students that have come through the radio station over the last 30 years I've been there, and they go, oh, what are you interested in doing? Well, I'm going to be a sportscaster, and I'm going to be very set on what they really want to do. But not that it isn't attainable, it's just that those positions are so few now.
yeah.
What used to be so many of those just aren't. The sports world has changed dramatically. The entertainment world has changed dramatically. So it's very different now. There aren't those hundreds and hundreds of positions that are available. But there may be other ways to get to there. I mean, I even see in my area they're filming movies like crazy, and there's all kinds of people working on the set. I've heard all kinds of stories where people started out, even if they're looking at getting in the acting world or some kind of broadcasting, they started out doing things like that and just ended up getting hired, doing, commercials or doing things like that. I think that now it's slightly different when you want to decide in a career like that. It's maybe going in other sort of venues to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
But I
Yeah,
think,
and just
but no, I was just
yeah,
going to add, but I think having a conversation, and you can always, I mean, any of the radio stations or TV, you can always call and ask to have a conversation with someone, and someone will talk to you about how the face of broadcasting looks right now for your, if you can give them an idea of what you want to do in the future.
Yeah, that is really good advice because we grew up in a time where face-to-face meetings and those types of conversations was what we did. Like,
Yeah,
but now, there's so much you can do behind a screen, and to really stand out, it's like get away from that screen and go meet people. That's
exactly.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let them meet you because they may be very pleasantly surprised at what they see. Absolutely.
yeah. I
100%.
love that, Sonny. Listen, I want to buy your book, so I really think you can write a book. Like, it's amazing. 30 years you've been doing this, and you've got like all of these other side interests and things that you do. I mean, you are a wealth of knowledge, Sonny. So I think your book would be awesome and very successful.
Oh, you're so sweet. But you
Yeah.
know what? If you got something you want to do, don't be afraid to do it. That's my advice. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a delight talking to you. I've
Thank
enjoyed
you,
every
Monica.
minute of it.
Well, and you know what? And if I can do a shout out for you in particular, because I know I've been involved in the Bright Run for Cancer here locally for Juravinsky Center, and you have always been involved. You've always made a specific piece of jewelry every year for the Bright Run. You've always been so involved in a big way, and that says a lot for what you do and your talent. There aren't very many people who do that, and I just think it's wonderful that you're involved in a big way, and when it's so appreciated, so you know that.
Oh, thank you so much. That's great. Now I want to hug you, but you're not.
Oh yeah,
here.
big hug, and I hope Santa Claus is good to you. Okay.
Yes, you too. You deserve it. Okay,
Thanks.
I'm gonna put you in the virtual green room. I'll see you in a couple
Okay.
seconds. Okay. Thanks, Sunny. Thank you guys so much for watching. Oh my gosh, she is such a delight. I really love chatting with Sunny, and I think we all need to push her to write a book. Anyway, before you sign off of your computer for the day, please go to scooters.ca, find out about roller skating, and come meet me for a skate. Go to brendabadome.com, grab yourself some beautiful clothes. Use the coupon code Get to Know Them for 20% off of your order. And go to my website, glamjewels.com, GLAMJULZ.com. Get yourself a little 3 Little Wishes necklace and help us families suffering from the financial burdens of cancer. Thank you so much for being here. Can't wait to see you back here next week. Keep on showing the world your sparkle. Bye for now.